Anne Boleyn is famous for losing her head, but her hygiene was just as shocking as her execution. She captivated a king, sparked a religious revolution, and changed England forever. Yet beneath the jewels and silk gowns, Anne hid secrets that would make your skin crawl. Today, we're diving into every harsh detail, from insects in her hair to the one habit that may have actually turned Henry VIII against her. In the Tudor era, cleanliness was a matter of life and death, but not because of bacteria. Tudors believed that hot water opened the pores and allowed disease to enter the body, so a full bath was seen as a deadly risk. Imagine Anne in the middle of July, trapped in 10 kilograms of velvet and silk, standing by a roaring fireplace in a palace with no air conditioning. That sweat had nowhere to go. Anne and other nobles lived in a near-constant state of itching, under their arms, in their groins, and wherever clothes were tight. At court, scent was a political weapon. In a world full of rivals, Anne had to smell like an angel to keep the king's interest. She washed her hands and face daily and poured on gallons of perfume to mask the odor. But none of this was enough. Therefore, Tudors normalized a different form of bathing. Anne herself likely bathed fully in warm water only a few times a year, or on special occasions. Her linen smock, worn beneath her dress, was her only line of defense against filth. It was meant to act as a mechanical filter, soaking up every milliliter of sweat, oil, and bodily fluid her body produced during the day. But the itching and the smell of sweat were just the tip of the iceberg. What was happening beneath her iconic French hood was on an entirely different and far more shocking level. In her day, Anne's hair was legendary, long, black, and shining beneath her French hood. To the courtiers, it was a symbol of pure luxury. But what they didn't know was that this beautiful hair hid a secret. Anne didn't use shampoo. Instead, she relied on powdered herbs and flour to absorb grease. In the damp air of English castles, these powders did more harm than good. They mixed with natural oils and turned into a thick, sticky mess on the scalp. This wasn't just dirt. It was the perfect breeding ground for something terrifying, something extremely common in Tudor England. Anne would likely have scratched her head constantly, and she would have had to spend hours having it painfully scraped clean. And the true nightmare, maintaining a perfectly composed expression in front of King Henry while feeling living organisms beneath her hood. Imagine an intimate moment in which the king leans in close and instead of the scent of expensive perfume, he sees lice. Tiny eggs stuck to nobles' hair near the scalp would have been very likely, along with sore spots caused by excessive scratching. The worst part was that there was literally no real cure. But problems inside the ears were even more hopeless during the Tudor period. Anne and other nobles had another hidden problem that is rarely mentioned: their ears. On the surface, Anne wore stunning pearl earrings that shimmered in the candlelight, but inside there could easily have been a fair amount of wax. This could have been a ticking time bomb for Anne. Henry VIII was a man who obsessed over purity and health. A single whiff of earwax during an intimate whisper could have shattered the illusion of his perfect queen. Anne had to manage it somehow, as there would have been intense attention to her appearance as queen, and visible wax would have been socially embarrassing. Yet Tudor solutions again made the situation much worse. In the 1530s, there were no cotton swabs or running warm water to flush out debris. Anne used ear picks made of bone or silver to manually scrape out the wax. This could easily have had terrible consequences. Imagine the sensation of cold metal scraping against sensitive skin, often pushing dirt deeper or causing small cuts that could lead to painful infections. But what about Anne's teeth and breath? That posed a more noticeable danger. Across the centuries, Europeans took care of their teeth in many disturbing ways. From using urine to whiten teeth in ancient Rome, to scraping tartar off teeth with knives in the Middle Ages. But what did it look like for Anne herself? Everyone knows the story of her daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, a woman said to have teeth so black and rotten that her breath could knock over a palace guard. Because of this, most people assumed the Tudors were nothing more than walking cavities. But what if Anne's smile was actually her most dangerous political weapon? In 1533, there were no dentists or toothbrushes. To stay clean, Anne likely relied on toothcloths and powders made from salt, honey, and even burnt bread, substances that literally scrubbed enamel away. Without flossing or modern care, every meal was a gamble with gum disease. But when researchers exhumed Anne's body nearly 400 years later, they did not find the decay they expected. Unlike her daughter, Anne had a nearly perfect set of teeth, with only a single rotten molar. However, having a perfect smile did not mean Anne was clean by modern standards. Because of the limits of Tudor hygiene, there is a strong chance she had an unpleasant breath by today's expectations. Even so, she likely managed it well enough to appear courtly and refined. Yet there was one area of her daily life that was so physically uncomfortable that most historians are too embarrassed to even mention it. To understand Anne fully, we have to look at how the most powerful woman in England handled her most private bathroom habits. When Anne stayed at Hampton Court Palace, there was a large shared toilet, a long chamber with 28 seats where courtiers could sit side by side, chatting and gossiping. This was considered normal, but not for a queen. Anne herself used a completely different method. The luxurious items she used traveled with her wherever she went, carried by servants as part of her private belongings. She used something called a close stool, a fancy, portable wooden box or chair, often covered in costly fabrics like velvet or silk. Because of Anne's extremely elaborate and heavy gowns, using the stool was a surprisingly difficult task. She needed someone she could trust to assist her in such private moments. Choosing noble women for a queen's most intimate needs was highly difficult and political. It wasn't just about finding someone willing. It had to be someone completely trustworthy, discreet and loyal, because any gossip or betrayal could be catastrophic. The ladies in this position had several unusual tasks. Toilet paper didn't exist at the time, so Anne's attendants would have used small pieces of soft linen, often reused and scented with rose water. They also helped Anne manage all the layers of her dress. It wasn't elegant or comfortable. However, Anne didn't have to remove her gown entirely. She would lift the heavy skirts and pull aside her loose linen underdress. It was awkward, but her clothing was designed to make this possible. The process didn't end there. The Queen's health was crucial, especially since she was expected to produce an heir. That's why her waist was sometimes examined by her ladies or by doctors. They looked for signs of illness or pregnancy. Once Anne was finished, her ladies would call lower-ranking servants to remove the pot from the stool. Shockingly, the contents eventually ended up on the palace plate. First, the waste was dumped into a cesspit, a deep hole beneath the palace. The men who cleaned these pits were called gong farmers, also known as nightmen. The smell was so strong that they were only allowed to work at night. They carried it in buckets and transported it away in carts. Much of the waste from royal palaces was sold to farmers. This material, called night soil, was spread on fields as fertilizer, helping grow crops that would later be eaten by the royal court. But there was one more private matter Anne had to deal with, something that absolutely devastated King Henry. Dealing with menstruation in the Tudor era was difficult. Anne would have used clouts, strips of high quality, folded linen or soft wool. To keep the cloth from slipping under her large skirts, she probably wore a menstrual girdle. For Anne, a period wasn't just a physical inconvenience, it was a political failure. In the Tudor mind, it represented the funeral of a potential male heir. Henry was obsessed with his wives' cycles. He didn't just wait for news, he had physicians and trusted older women in the Queen's chambers, monitoring Anne closely. When Anne's flowers appeared, which was the Tudor word for periods, it meant the couple had failed for that month. It was deeply devastating for Henry. After breaking with Rome and risking his soul to marry Anne, every month without a pregnancy felt like God's rejection of the marriage. Historians believe Henry's feelings toward Anne changed because of this. He became cold and turned his attention to other women, such as Jane Seymour, in an effort to prove his own virility. But the truth behind Anne's failed attempts at producing a male heir may be far more surprising than most people think. Recent biohistorical research suggests Henry may have had a rare blood group called Kell positive. If a Kell positive man has children with a Kell negative woman, which Anne likely was, the first child is usually healthy, as Elizabeth I was. After that, the mother's body may attack future pregnancies. This means Anne may have become pregnant multiple times after Elizabeth, but was unable to carry a son to term. The blame lay with Henry, not Anne, despite his belief otherwise. When Anne would eventually start bleeding again, it marked the literal end of her safety. This must have been terrifying for her. By 1536, Henry was convinced that the lack of a male heir meant the marriage was cursed by God, a belief that ultimately led to Anne's execution. But her story did not end with her death. What happened to her body afterward shocked and fascinated people for centuries, leaving a legacy of both tragedy and intrigue. Watch the next video to learn why.